Welcome to the weekly S3 seminar series. Today we are going to delve into a controversial topic, the dilemma of modern Indians, distorted connection with the past. In this particular seminar, we will discuss 5 important points. Number 1, what are the current datelines and theories as far as our cultural traditions, their origin are concerned. Number 2, are the facts presented to us correct? How we can evaluate them? Number 3, we will take the help of genetic, geophysical, archeo-astronomical and cultural evidence to evaluate the contemporary historical narrations. Number 4, we will take a glance at the textbooks of history taught in the schools. And number 5, what is the role of modern educated Indians in this regard, what they can do to correct the situation and establish correct historical narration. We would begin with introduction of two Indologists. Basically, Indology is the academic study of history, culture, languages and literature of India. People who undertake such study, they are called as Indologists. Two prominent Indologists of the British era are Thomas B. Macaulay and Max Muller. They both have profound influence on India. Whereas Thomas B. Macaulay has deep influence on the education system, Max Muller has profound influence on the history of India that is taught to us. Macaulay was a British poet, historian and politician. He wrote extensively on British history. He also had political office as secretary during war between 1839 and 1841. He was appointed by the Britishers to devise a suitable education system for India aimed at consolidating the control. His legacy is still visible in the present education system. Macaulay was of view that the Britishers should create a race in India that is Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, opinions, morals and intellect. Max Muller was an Orientalist interested in the study of religions, particularly Sanskrit language and the Vedic literature. He was born in Germany but educated in Oxford, UK. Later he became UK citizen. He said that Vedas are worse than savage and India must be conquered again by education. Its religion is doomed. He wanted to engineer an Indian form of Christianity. He hoped that superstition and idolatry that he considered to be the main characteristic of Indian culture would disappear. He somehow persuaded the East India Company to allow him to undertake a critical edition of Rig Veda. He carried out this task for several years, but somehow he misinterpreted Vedic texts to make them look primitive and promote them as mythology. Max Muller is also the main architect of the Aryan Invasion Theory. According to the Aryan Invasion Theory, foreign Aryans conquered the native Indians between 1200 and 1500 BC. Natives mainly inhabited the Indus Valley region and they were part of the Indus Valley Civilization. The foreign Aryans who came from Central Asia, they were able to conquer the native Indians on account of their superior iron weapons and horses. The native Indians, they were driven towards the south, and possibly the present day South Indians are the native people of the Indus Valley Civilization. According to Max Muller, Rig Veda was composed in 1200 BC. The Aryan Invasion Theory implied that the Indian culture came from a foreign soil. All Indologists were not like them. Schopenhauer, who was a German philosopher known for his pessimism and philosophical clarity, had different opinion. According to him, the Sanskrit understanding of these Indologists was like that of young schoolboys. Similarly, Alfred North Whitehead, a British mathematician, logician, and philosopher, said, Vedanta is the most impressive metaphysics the human mind has conceived. Similarly, Voltaire, a French writer, historian, and philosopher of the 17th century, held differing views about India. Voltaire was famous for his wit, criticism of Christianity, the Roman Catholic Church, and at the same time he advocated freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and separation of church and the state. Voltaire was a frontrunner of liberal pluralism in his approach to history and non-European cultures. Since the days of the Industrial Revolution, the Eurocentric model was very prominent. The Europeans, they thought themselves as superior to other races. Recognizing the contributions of India to decimal system, concept of zero and infinity, and the binary number system, Voltaire once stated that everything has come down to us from the bank of Ganges. Pythagoras went to the Ganges to learn geometry. The views of the favorable Indologists were not supported by the East India Company. They basically favored Indologists like Macaulay and Max Muller, who had negative influence. The Vedic literature were denounced by the Indologists because of their Eurocentric superiority model. They had colonial point of view that all other continents, they were supposed to be colony of the Britishers on account of their superiority. This systematic and institutionalized negative propaganda by the Indologists had a very detrimental effect on the mind of the Indians. This systematic and institutionalized negative propaganda on our history and culture had tremendous effect on the perception of the masses. It was some kind of manipulative tactics to bring about psychological perception re-engineering. In fact, it's a well-documented fact that governments, they employ 4 steps to bring about a slow change of mass perception. It begins with demoralization. During this stage, which typically lasts 15 to 30 years, that is one generation, the moral fiber, integrity, and spirituality of the masses is put into question. Then the next phase is destabilization, which takes 2 to 5 years. The purpose of this step is to change the status quo, particularly the region's economy, foreign relations, defense, and other means. Then the next phase, which lasts few weeks, is the crisis. So this is a very major step which involves some kind of revolutionary change. And then this is followed in the end by the 4th step, that is normalization, which takes 10 to 20 years. So as a result of these 4 steps, in about 2 generations, the perception of the whole set of masses changes. So this strategy was applied by the East India Company to gradually change the perception of the masses and make them develop an inferiority complex about own culture. As a result of this, people started treating their own historical descriptions as mythology. Historical figures, they were regarded as fictional. Ramayana and Mahabharata came to be regarded as stories. Every custom and tradition came to be regarded as superstition. That this strategy is very successful can be known by the fact that we are very fond of using mythology for everything of our history. Take the example of Amar Chitra Katha. Its front page declares that all the contents are nothing but myth, fictional. No one can deny the fact that the outcome of the institutionalized propaganda which has spanned for over 1.5 centuries, is that there has been a considerable erosion of the cultural, moral and spiritual values of Indians. However, if we have to present the alternate point of view, we should have strong scientific evidence. This part we are going to present some of the important scientific evidence in correcting the situation. Before we go further, let's just review the different date-related abbreviations which we'll encounter when we study the scientific literature. We are all very much familiar with AD and BC, that is Anno Domini and before Christ. Alternate terminologies are CE, current era, and BCE, before current era, to express the dates without specifically referring to Christianity. Then there is a terminology BP, before the present. This uses 1950 year as the reference. Similarly, there is the unit of KA, that is kilo annum, which means 1000 years. So basically for kilo annum, the reference year is 2000. According to the mainstream history, the farming began in 6000 BCE, that is close to about 8000 years ago. And there are evidence from Mehrgarh site. The Harappan cities, they are dated to be flourishing in between 2700 and 1900 BC. The Rig Veda is dated to be composed between 1500 and 1000 BCE. That is after Aryans, they came to India, they defeated the citizens of the Harappan cities and they settled down here and slowly composed the Rig Veda and other literature. Similarly, based on the estimations of Max Muller, the dates for various famous literature in our spiritual culture, they are considered to be in between 500 BC and 500 CE. When we talk of Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are declared to be composed between 500 BCE and 400 CE. Historians are silent on when these wars were actually fought. They only talk of when these literature they were composed. On the other hand, Vedic scholars, they have a different version. According to Vedic scholars, the war of Mahabharata occurred about 5000 years ago, that is 3000 BC. At this stage, we can even talk of Ramayana. However, right now we are not bringing Ramayana into question. We'll consider it later. If we use the Vedic dateline, then many people will just disbelieve. According to Mahabharata, all the Vedic literature was composed and put in a written form in the years just after the war, just at the dawn of the present Iron Age, which is the Kali Yuga. According to Surya Siddhant and also according to the estimations of Aryabhat, the present age began in the year 3102 BCE. The war of Mahabharata was fought 37 years before the beginning of the present age of Kali Yuga. Based on that, the date of Mahabharata war is supposed to be 3139 BCE. Every educated Indian, he has several questions in mind when we talk about our historical legacy. First of all, the question comes that is Mahabharata fact or fantasy? Is it just a story? If it's not a story, is there any scientific proof? Then the next question comes, are we descendants of invaders? Because we have been taught right from beginning that we are Aryans. And this also gives a racial angle. If the North Indians are Aryans, the South Indians are Dravidas. Then the next question comes, if we are not from the same ancestors who were residing in the Indus Valley, who were those people? If they were not our forefathers, where are they now? Then is there any scientific evaluation of the Aryan Invasion Theory available? So in this particular video, we'll consider all these questions. We have done a scientific evaluation of the mainstream historical narrations. As far as the Aryan Invasion Theory is concerned, no one has asked any proof to Max Muller. All his concepts about the Aryan invasion and then the falling of the Harappan civilization, they were totally speculative in nature. However, we have done a scientific evaluation of the facts based on 5 points. Number 1, geophysical evaluation of the Saraswati Ghaggar paleo channels. Most of the Harappan cities, they were located in between the Indus River and the now extinct Saraswati River. So a lot of studies they have been done on the paleo channels. Paleo channels means the underground streams of those ancient rivers. They have been studied and they have been traced. Then we have looked into the evidence of genetic analysis. At the time of Aryan Invasion Theory, there was no availability of this scientific knowledge. Then we have also looked at archeo-astronomy, then cultural continuity and certain other miscellaneous facts. We will go through each of these points one by one. The first scientific evidence is related to the geophysical study of Saraswati Ghaggar paleo channels. So here in this map, we are showing the dried bed of Saraswati River and other tributaries and main rivers like Indus. The cities of the Harappan civilization, they flourish in this particular region. This study has recently been published in the Episodes Journal of International Geosciences, a reputed journal. Past studies, they were projecting that the Saraswati River dried around 1900 BCE. But this particular study, it tells that the date of drying of Saraswati River is much earlier. Based on the investigations, it projects that the drying of the Saraswati River took place in between 15,000 years to 5,000 years. This pushes the date of drying of Saraswati River to 3000 BC at one extreme and 13,000 BCE on the other. Another related study can be found in Nature scientific reports. According to this study, the estimated time of disappearance of the river Saraswati is projected to lie between 9,000 and 4,500 years. That is in between 2500 BC and 7000 BC. There is definitely a variation of the dates, but if we take the conservative estimates, then one thing is clear that Saraswati River dried at least prior to 2500 BCE, and this fact is enough to demolish the Aryan Invasion Theory. If we go by the Aryan Invasion Theory, when the Aryans landed in India in between 1500 and 1200 BC, river Saraswati was no longer flowing. However, Vedic literatures, they repeatedly cite Saraswati River. In Rig Veda alone, Saraswati River has been cited at least 50 times. This clearly implies that Vedas were compiled much earlier than 1500 to 1000 BC as put forward by the Aryan Invasion Theory. This establishes that Aryans were the indigenous people and most likely inhabitants of the Indus Valley Civilization itself. Earlier, it was thought that if it's not the invasion, then possibly drying up of Saraswati River was the main cause of collapse of the Indus Valley Civilization. However, new studies, they have thrown light that the main reason for collapse of the civilization was the climatic change induced droughts. This particular study, recently published in the Journal of Quaternary Science, it clearly tells that there was a drought in the period 2100 to 2300 BC. So whatever the cause of collapse of the Indus Valley Civilization, it is clear that the Aryan Invasion Theory and the associated dateline, they are debunked. The next evidence is the evidence of genetic analysis. Recently, a study has been published in the reputed Journal of Cell. So according to this study, which was conducted on the mortal remains from Rakhigarhi site, which is a major Harappan site, it came out we are basically the descendants of the Harappan people. Harappan people are no different from the so-called Aryans. Clearly, the genome from the Indus Valley Civilization is from a population that is the largest source of the present-day South Asians. Hence, the modern-day Indians, they are basically descendants of the Harappan people. The next evidence will be archeo-astronomy. Archeo-astronomy is a branch of science which combines astronomy with archaeology so as to uncover history. Basically, in Mahabharata, the compiler Vedvyas has given the dates in terms of the map of the sky, in terms of the position of various constellations and various planetary systems. So all those details, they are available in Mahabharata. Based on those details, Professor B.N. Narhari Achar of the University of Memphis, US, he has done an elaborate study using planetarium software. The planetarium software enables obtaining the map of the sky at any earlier date. Based on the simulations from the planetarium software, Professor Achar arrives at a date of 3000 BC on an approximate basis for the events of Mahabharata. This matches very well with the year of 3102 BC as per Surya Siddhant and Aryabhat. I have also come across one more study published in the Indian Journal of History of Sciences in the year 2017. It gives a number of probable dates. These dates include the year 3102 BCE also, but it also includes years like 3140 BCE and 1793 BCE. Essentially, it is possible that some events or their combinations, they may have occurred a number of times. That's why this method relies on elimination. So it's very important that the researcher, he has very good command on Mahabharata itself. At least one thing is clear from these studies, that Mahabharata is not any fiction. The studies show that the events which have been described can be corroborated. Next, we see the evidence of cultural continuity. The Harappan tradition of women wearing bangles till the shoulders is still alive at many places across India. This clearly points towards cultural continuity. There are a number of tribes who follow this tradition. One of the tribes is the Banjara tribe, who very much follow this tradition till date. In addition, the discovery of the artifacts bearing the symbols of swastika, Om and Shivlingas, they also point to cultural continuity only. Going further, we find that all the descriptions which are there in Mahabharata, in Srimad Bhagavatam, including the places, they are still there. Now we will evaluate the Aryan Invasion Theory in terms of some logical evidences. First of all, let's try to understand what is the meaning of the term Aryan. The term Aryan is derived from the Sanskrit word Arya. The literal meaning of the word Arya is civilized, a person who believes in the spiritual value of life. It is never used in a racial sense. Aryan Invasion Theory, on the other hand, uses the term in a racial manner, that it has to do something with skin. The term Dravida is similar to Odia and Gaudiya. Gaudiya means the devotees of Lord residing in Bengal. Odia means the devotees residing in Odisha. Similarly, the devotees of South, they are called as Dravida. Later on, the term Aryan was misused by Germans and the Nazis under Hitler to create racial atrocities. The statement that racially white or light-skinned Aryans, they pushed the darker natives of the Harappan settlements southwards, this does not hold much ground. In fact, the color has never been a basis of the spiritual knowledge of India. Had this been the fact, then the people of the North India would not have liked the dark-skinned deities Lord Rama, Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. In general, whether North India or South India, the average skin color is something like yellowish and brownish in nature, somewhat dusky complexion. However, there are exceptions in the Indian subcontinent. We can have extremely fair and Hispanic or European looks on one hand, and on the other hand, the skin color might vary to very dark on lines of the African continent. And these variations, they are found in North India as well as South India. So there is nothing like the fact that North Indians are having fairer complexion and South Indians are having very dark complexions. Of course, this happens that if we move towards equator, then owing to the direct exposure to sun rays, there is some tanning. To say that the South Indian traditions, they are different from the North Indian traditions, that's also a bit absurd. If that had been the case, then the South India would not have followed the Vedic traditions. In fact, South India boasts of more authentic Vedic culture and tradition in the form of deity worship, in the form of dressing, and in terms of the respect to cow. All across India, right from north to south, east to west, the cow dung is considered pure and holy. Cow is worshipped. This is the greatest example of the uniform prevalence of Vedic culture all across the Indian subcontinent. There has been no evidence of any foreign invasion. In those days, population migration on account of flooding and droughts, that was very common, and this has been mentioned at several places in the Vedic scriptures. There is no mention of any foreign Aryan homeland in any of the Vedic literatures covering the 4 Vedas, 108 Upanishads, 18 Puranas and the 2 Itihasas. All the Vedic scriptures, they repeatedly cite the existing mountains, places and rivers of India only. Had the Aryans migrated from some other land, they would have definitely made some references at least to the rivers, mountains, places of those lands. So this contradicts the proposition that the Aryans, they came from some foreign soil. There is a direct reference to the cities of Harappan sites at several places in the Vedic literature. In fact, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are instances of reference to those cities. For example, in Canto 10, there is instance that the group of the friends of Lord Krishna and his parents, they visited Ambika forest, which lies close to a Harappan site. Lastly, on one hand, there is vast literature comprising of the Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas and Itihas. On the other hand, there are about more than 2,500 archaeological sites which have been discovered, and apparently there is no documentation associated with them. This leads to something called as false paradox. Essentially, the literature and the artifacts, they must point to one and the same civilization. Cultural continuity clearly points to the fact that the Indus Valley settlements, they were indeed Vedic civilizations and not otherwise. The Aryan Invasion Theory does not have very strong historical, cultural, scientific or archaeological evidences. It has been consistently debunked by international researchers in the last 30 years. The Aryan Invasion Theory was totally speculative, and it emerged from mental concoction of Max Muller. When proposed, science did not have the benefit of understanding genes, human migration traits, and many other scientific techniques which we have covered so far. So this is the older textbook for middle school history. Now this specifically mentions about the Aryan Invasion Theory. It mentions the year 1500 BC, and that the fall of the Harappan culture was a sad event. So the Aryans who came afterwards knew nothing of the city life, and then the cities were destroyed because of the invasion and because of the floods and other epidemics. Next, we see the present day NCERT book for class 6. Now, one good thing is that they have not used the term Aryan invasion here, but indirectly they are referring to something like the Sioux. Now, the statement in the book says that sometimes the people who composed of the hymns described themselves as Aryas and called their opponents as Das or the Sioux. These were the people who did not perform the sacrifices and probably spoke different languages. Later, the term Dasa and the feminine Dasi came to mean slave. Slaves were women and men who were often captured in war. They were treated as the property of their owners, who could make them do whatever work they wanted. So this is very ridiculous that the word the Sioux has been taken and its meaning distorted. The Sioux, as we know, it means plunderer. And how come the Sioux is being mixed with Das, and the effort is made that there was the custom of slavery. However, there is no mention of any slavery system in the Indian context. Let us also have a look at class 12 history book. So here the evidence of invasion is given in this form, that both the arguments in favor of invasion and against invasion are given in this fashion. However, the focus is to take the reader towards some kind of invasion by Aryans. So far in this video we have covered the description of the war of Mahabharat, and we have shown a number of evidences to prove its authenticity. Now if we go further down the line and talk of Ramayana, is there any archaeological evidence of Ramayana, and when the incident of Ramayana happened? Again, there are different versions, but according to the Vedic literature, the incidents of Ramayana happened at least 869,000 years ago. You may again ask that how is it possible? Because if we go by the mainstream history, then at that particular time Homo sapiens were not there. We are working towards gathering similar kind of evidences for the Ramayana period also, and soon we will come out with a video similar to this one. All of you who wish to be part of our efforts in these studies can let us know, and we could include you also as part of our investigations. It is hoped that the viewers are very much convinced with the facts presented in the previous sections. If you are convinced, the next question which comes to our mind is that what should be our actions? How we can correct the situation? What should be our responsibility? We can take a cue from the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared in India over 500 years ago. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said that if we are born in India, we are very fortunate. It is then our responsibility to first learn thoroughly our Vedic teachings, and then we should present it to the world, and in this way we do good for all. In order to connect with our spiritual traditions, it's very important that we read the Vedic literature from authentic sources. We should not fall prey to distorted commentaries. Already there have been a lot of deterioration on account of the misinterpretations by the European Vedic scholars. Here, Bhagavad Gita, as it is translated by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who hails from same spiritual tradition and lineage as that of Vedvyas, is the best solution. It is written in very easy to understand form. It is available in English and all major Indian languages. If we read Bhagavad Gita, we'll get an essence of the spirituality of the Vedic literatures. If we are done with Bhagavad Gita, then we should start reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the most important of the 18 Puranas of our Vedic system. It contains a lot of information, not just about spirituality, but also about culture, tradition, political system, economic system, and so many aspects of the Vedic life and the associated traditions. If we read Srimad Bhagavatam, it also contains excerpts from other Puranas, Itihasas like Ramayana and Mahabharata. It is a complete encyclopedia in itself. In the spiritual circles, whereas Bhagavad Gita is regarded as equivalent of the bachelor's degree, Srimad Bhagavatam is regarded as the master's degree. Alongside reading the important books, we should also practice spirituality at our home. The Vedic literatures, they have prescribed transcendental sound vibration based meditation, the mantra meditation for this particular age. In fact, in the coming seminars, we will cover in detail how to do this kind of mantra meditation and connect spiritually. We sincerely hope that the seminar was useful to you. If you want to connect with our group, please let us know. If you want to be part of the future projects in this regard, then also you can be in touch with us. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, sir, for nice presentation. So there are some questions on chat box. So would you like to read, or I can read it for the audience?
I think better you can read for me,
Okay.
and I would be very happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. So Rohit Yadav is asking, so why archaeologists are not able to find fossils at age of Ramayana and even Mahabharata, which shows direct link with Vedic culture, which also can help to debunk Darwin's theory of evolution. So what is your comment, sir?
Actually, the climatic conditions in India they are very different from those in other parts of the world. So here, the human remains. It's not possible to have very ancient human remains or similar kind of animal stuff which one can find in Europe or Americas. So possibly that is the reason that in the case of Indian context, we are not finding very uh, ancient fossils. But yes, more Indian archaeologists and anthropologists, they should try to dig up the sites here, because essentially what we do is that we follow the Western research and try to do those lines. So we have to have an independent line of action from the Indian context.
Okay, okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
The audience, if have any other question, they can either chat, post in the chat box, or they can even directly speak out if somebody doesn't want to type. So, so
Hi Krishna, I have one question.
Hello. Please introduce yourself.
Hare Krishna. Yes, well, talk is very hand evidences on horses in Vimbatka rock shelters, which are found in MP, which are found to be more than 10,000 year old. Am I audible? Am I audible?
yes, perfectly.
Yes. So which are more than 10,000 years old, and this is clear. There are clear evidence that India there are horses, and still Aryan theory proposes that horses are not indigenous. This is one, and secondly, recently in Snowly, whatever archaeological evidence is found, I have seen in Discovery channel that there are chariots found, and particularly chariots designs were found as exactly described like in Mahabharata. So, sir, what do you like to say that how this kind of Aryan theory could prevail such a long time when we have already paintings in rocks in Vimpetka particularly? Why people have accepted so easily? Thank you.
Yeah, actually, is the partly is we are to blame that we are too much dependent on the Western belief system, and we are unable to very assertively say and debunk all these. In this connection, the ideas of Dr. Michael Cramo. What Dr. Michael Cramo says that in the case of the modern research, there is something called as continuity of the same theory. If some theory is there, older theory is there, then that older theory keeps on coming in the secondary references, that is in the textbooks. So in the textbooks, it continues for a long time. Though in the primary references, in the research papers, it might be demolished, but it takes very long time for it to be removed from the textbooks. So this is another reason. And the horses kind of thing, yes, they are definitely. I also read recently efforts they have been discovered in the Indian sites. And now this, how it came to be associated with the Aryan invasion theory, that initially when the Harappan civilizations, they were dug, initially the signs of different animals were there, cows were there, bulls were there, but horse uh, artifacts, they were not found initially. So that could be the reason that this enforced the effect, this enforced the notion that there are no horses in India. But that looks very absurd, because the horses, they have been a very important part of the military in all the ancient texts we read, whether it's Mahabharata or Ramayana. So without horses, no battle can be fought, elephants and horses. And definitely when there is a trade with the Middle East and with Afghanistan, usually the horses of Afghanistan and the Iran, Iraq, they were very strongly built and they were preferred, and there was definitely a trade. Even in the 15th, 16th century, we learned that the horse of Maharana Pratap Chetak, he was an Afghani horse. So definitely there was a established trade between these neighbors. So that there is no point that horse would not come here, even though the breeds in Afghanistan or Iran or Iraq, they were better. But there is no denial of the fact that why can't horses be imported here? So that's the point here.
Hi, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I had a question. So,
please introduce yourself.
My name is Ashutosh. Yes.
Welcome, Ashutosh.
Yeah. So my question is, in books like Mahabharata, it is described that in the wars, especially, they were using pretty advanced weaponry. Even in Ramayana, like there was pretty like unheard. Right now we cannot scientifically conceive how to create those kind of weapons. So how would you explain the deterioration of knowledge, like from those times up to now?
Yes, this knowledge is something, especially the scientific knowledge, or the knowledge of the art and technology. This keeps on changing. This keeps on building up and keeps on destroying. For example, take in the modern context. When did we last go on moon? According to NASA, we last went in the year 1972, and now it's 2022 has come. So 50 years, we have not gone to moon. So what happened to the technology? Now, today, NASA is saying that we have lost that technology and we are building the technology from scratch because there was a gap. So definitely these kind of instances would be there in the future also, that whatever we are having the technology in the present, after some time, it's not always like we can always have maintain the J curve, because maintaining J curve is always unsustainable. At some point, the civilizations, the technology, they reach a peak and then it comes down. This has happened so many times, not just the we see from the older Ramayana or the Mahabharata times, but even today also it is very much possible. For example, all the recordings these days, they are in the what form? They are stored in the servers. And if, for example, there is a major climate change, and if we are not able to produce that much electricity, we are not able to produce that much food, then what will happen there? The civilization will, come down. And most of that knowledge which is there in the servers, maybe after, say, 500 years later, it may not be readable. For example, we have a pen drive today, and let's say I put the pen drive in a time cell, and after 1000 years, now someone takes the pen drive, but will he be able to retrieve the information inside the pen drive? Because the information inside the pen drive is coded. It requires a certain to uncover and something like that. But one thing is very clear, that conceptually all these scientific advancements like the space ships, the aircraft, and those weaponry, they were definitely there. So their conceptual details are still there. And in fact, though we are not much studying those, but NASA is definitely studying all those aspects, and they are considering those designs. For example, in the case of the Viman Shastra, the ancient aeroplanes, they were based on the principle of the gyroscopic motion, and electricity was produced through mercury. So that technology itself, the scientists say it's feasible to produce some kind of gyroscopic motion so that it produces levitation. So it is definitely feasible. So it's not that all those descriptions, they are imaginary. I hope I have answered your question.
Sir, I am Suji Kumar, sir.
Yes.
Sir,
Just give me a minute. My battery is running out. Just give me a minute. I just connect I forgot to connect my computer to the battery. Just hold on for 1 minute. I will be back.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So meanwhile, I would just like to request the audience. There are some questions on the chat. So if they permit, you can take up those questions because they came earlier. So I think after 1-2 questions that are already posted on chat box, they can go to the. I mean, they can directly ask. So is that
okay, sir? Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, I am now back, and my battery is now okay. I had forgotten to connect it. Yes. Any other question?
So actually, there are some questions on chat box. I'll just read out, and then the audience can directly ask.
Yeah.
So Suji Kumar D is asking. So first of all, we must translate our traditional golden books in Indian language. While translating in English, they are adding many wrong things to create a bad impression to Indians. So maybe just a comment. So then Dr. Barun Shukla is asking, what type of evidence is found in Dwarka near Gujarat?
Okay, I think the first question is asked by whom? Translation?
Suji Kumar.
Suji Kumar.
Kumar, I think this is a very relevant question, that all the texts, they must be translated in the contemporary Indian languages. And that is, if you see ISKCON is taking every step to make sure that all the Indian languages, they are covered properly. Especially Srila Prabhupada, he translated the main books, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita in English first, and then the ISKCON is doing the translation in all possible languages, not just India, but the entire world. So this is very important. So the texts, they need to be translated properly. But then again, it's very important that if any XYZ person with superficial knowledge translates, then the meaning could be distorted, just like we have already seen how Max Muller and those party, they did that. So it has to be done by experts who consult the right persons who have the proper knowledge of Sanskrit, who hail from the proper disciplic succession, and who are very knowledgeable. Only those persons, they should translate so that the meaning is not distorted. And what was the second question? I forgot.
It was about the evidences found near Dwarka, of Krishna's Dwarka.
Yes, in fact, Dwarka city, a lot of evidences, they have been found, like the pillars. The pillars, they have been found exactly of the same type as they have been described in Mahabharata and related books. And jetties, they have also been found, because there was a very good trade with the neighboring country card. So in those days, the kingdoms, they were providing seals to the citizens as the I card. So they have also been discovered. So their archaeological study needs to be done. So basically, if we have faith, then it's very easy to understand. But experts who are doing research in these fields, they must also choose these areas, and they should do research, and they should publish. But a lot of scientists, they are doing that. Like I have cited so many literature from the journals like Cell and similar high impact journals. So like the ones dealing with the paleo channels, ones dealing with the genetic analysis. So they are all done by the Indian researchers. So Indian researchers, they are doing it and they are being published. But it will take time for them to come from the journals to the textbook. It will take time. Just like the perception change, it takes time. So it will take some time for them to come to the textbook level. Okay. Any other question?
Thank you. So just last question. Then the person was asking directly, you can ask. I just noticed his name. So Naresh Chandra is asking. Again, it's about Dwarka. Dwarka kingdom of Krishna, which merged into ocean, also have some finding of coins. I think already mentioned. So it's answered. So. So then Dr. Barun Shukla is asking, is moon landing really a fake thing? So maybe
moon landing, do you believe that it's fake?
So maybe
what is your basis?
Yeah.
Let me ask you how you are saying that it's fake.
I believe it's fake.
See, it may or may not be fake. It's difficult. But even if it's true, see, one can enter into the only small aspect of the moon. If we try to do a journey from Earth to moon, the Vedas say that in the physical body, we cannot go to other planets in this particular body. But even if we make use of some additional equipment, oxygen and other things, even if we try to make use of the mechanical method to go to the moon, we'll not be able to enter into the heavenly zone of moon. We'll be just going to just like something like airport. The example is that if, for example, you want to go to the US, you need a proper visa to go. And if you don't have the visa, you can by some way, let's say you ditch the Indian immigration system and you go to US, and you can at the most land in the airport. And what you find that you are not able to go cross that airport. So you have to stay within the airport, and you think this is the only US, and eventually you will be transported back. So the moon landing could be like that maybe mechanical means we can land into the one particular zone, something like airport of the moon, but we will not have exposure to the heavenly aspects of moon. So, and in the near future, we'll come to know, because Elon Musk is very much enthusiastic. So we'll come to know what happens next. But it's also a fact that after 1972, how come US did not attempt to send human beings on the moon? So whatever the case, we may have to wait and watch. Any other question?
Prabhuji, I have two other questions. Can I ask you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. One is that, in addition to what points you have mentioned, I also felt there is a scope to explore geographical continuity, like starting from Afghanistan to Sri Lanka, whatever description has been done in Ramayana and Mahabharata, those things are still continuing. For example, about Kamrupa or Pragjyotispur in Northeast India, that is Assam right now. There was a description, so far I know traditionally, that elephants were sent from land of Bhagadatta to Kurukshetra. And if we see this carefully, until now, this system is going on. Like from Assam, southern parts we supply elephants, or Gujarat or other places. So this is one geographical continuity, I feel. And I also heard that the places where when Yudhishthir went to Sargwa, and then there were a lot of dogs. The place which is referred now in Uttarakhand, or I don't know where, Himachal, there are still that kind of dogs available. So
Okay.
this is just an example. This is one. And secondly, when we are talking about this point of how far those exaggerating stuff in Mahabharata is possible. For example, so many weapons in details, description, and so on. I just keep on asking myself, in science or even now, what kind of change will happen after 100 years? We common people cannot imagine what kind of revolutionary things are going to happen in next 100 years. For example, when we were in school, we or our parents never thought that we can sit in home and see each other at any point of time through a small device like mobile. Okay, this in 30-40 years, this kind of change is happening. So when in the time of Mahabharata, like those in general, human imagination is so less. So if those weapons were actually not available, was it possible for them to do entirely on the basis of imagination? This is my question. There has to be something real exist. Otherwise, this kind of extraordinary imagination that people can fly, people can have this kind of detailed weapons and so on. It was simply, it has to be extraordinary mind which is just imagining this kind of stuff. Whereas we modern people, even are not able to imagine what will happen in next 100 years. Thank you.
Yes, this is a very important point, because it's like if we say that Mahabharata and Ramayana, they are myth, then this is not possible, because all the descriptions, they can be verified, especially the geographical descriptions in Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are still very verifiable. Plus, a lot of in the Kurukshetra, a lot of these ancient these fighters' weapons, they have also been discovered, and their thermoluminescence reveals their age to be around 3000 BC. Similarly, artifacts which have been discovered from the old Purana Kila region of New Delhi, near the botanical zoo, the analysis shows that their period is around 3000 BC. So more these kind of studies need to be undertaken.
Sir, I am Suji Kumar, sir. Once again, sir, now there in Mahabharata war, there is it's an Ashwatthama. But now also some people have seen he's alive now, still now. That means it's some 12 feet height. That means Krishna gave a sharp, you will not die. You will be live with that wound like that. So now also he's alive. People, many people, that the railway workers saw, and that kind of information come out. What are you able to say about this, sir?
Yes, I won't be, because personally I have not. Personally, it's difficult for me to comment, but it's not impossible also, because as per the descriptions in Mahabharata, he was cursed that he would have to stay, and he would have a wound in the forehead where there was this money, and this was taken away by Lord Krishna. So he must be wandering somewhere in the Uttarakhand, and then the remote Himalayas. There are still regions which are not accessible to ordinary people, and a lot of ancient sadhus, they do a lot of meditation over there. And however, people like us, we don't have easy access to those places, but it's quite possible.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is Vinay Kumar. Prabhuji, there is a question in the chat box by Professor Mitra questioning the period of the Ramayana, that is 8,69,000 years, what you mentioned. And what we understand from Vedic literature, that the Chatur Yugas, the Kali Yuga is 4,32,000, and double of that is the Dwapar Yuga, and triple of that is the the what is that? That Rama's Yuga, Treta Yuga.
Treta Yuga.
Treta Yuga. So,
Hmm.
and we read many places that the Lord Rama appeared in the mid of the Treta Yuga.
Yeah.
So by that time, it is around 20 lakh years that the Rama's appearance would have been there on this thing. And as regard the stellar, the planetary positions, no, that is cyclic, and many of the positions they come again and again. And this is a big question for normal people, because normally we don't comprehend that that kind of time scale. So can you reflect on that a little more on that probably?
Yes, what you mean to say that archaeology may not be successful in tracing that long period, right? Because it's a very long time gap. So that's true. The other archaeological facts they could be studied, because now here the Adams Bridge is there. So the scientists, they may study, may do the necessary evaluation of the rocks found in the Adams Bridge. So that will definitely throw light, because Ramayana gives a proper description of the construction of the bridge. That for construction of the bridge, the rocks were brought from the Himalayas. So that is one point to be mentioned in the Ramayana. Then it also describes that wooden logs were also laid, and this is how the compaction was done. So all these descriptions are there. So if the Indian scientists, they could do study something like this, so something can come out. I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I have one point. Like,
can you just introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Shankar Das, and I ask one question. According to this Institute of Scientific Research on Vedas, right? This institute is using one software, Planetarium, and according to that software, the Ramayana time is coming around 5114 BC, around 5000 years back BC. And the same when we check on the Wikipedia about Adams Bridge, the age of the Adams Bridge is coming out around 7000 years back. So it mentioned in there. So how come this long, like around 8 lakhs of time of Ramayana is not considered with these facts? Because as per this document, 7000 years is the date where Ramayana happened, and 5000 years back the Mahabharata happened. So, and one more thing, when you read out the Homo sapiens time, the Homo sapiens, the first human being, is coming on the earth. The timing is around 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs in between, and Ramayana time is 8 lakhs. So there is a big contradiction here. Like, we are very confused on it, sir. So that is the point.
Yes, see, earlier the scientists were saying that the first Homo sapiens came 100,000 years.
Yes.
Now they have extended it to 300,000 years.
300.
This is all dynamic in nature based on the current evidence. So a lot of in science, a lot of things they change.
Okay.
The age of the Ramayana is at least 8,69,000 years, at least, because that's from the calculation of the Treta Yuga. But now the references which you are citing, they are from Wikipedia and somewhere else. So I would request that you, if you have get the actual papers published in some SCI journal, and you share with us, and we can study those. So just like for the case of the Mahabharata, I searched these papers in journals. I went to the Web of Science and I got these papers related to genetic analysis. So if you get some papers, so I think you bring to our attention, and we'll also study what they say. Now, as far as the astroarchaeonomy is concerned, it's a bit difficult, because see, many of the events, they are repeating. Some situations they can repeat.
Okay.
So that's why this period 869,000 years is too long for astroarchaeology point of view. So even Mahabharata also, there were multiple dates. So some dates they need to be eliminated. So only a person who has very good knowledge of Mahabharata, only he can be a very good person. Similarly for Ramayana also, use of the astro-archaeonomy may or may not be that much successful. So that is one thing. And then the other about 7,000 years of the life of the Adam's Bridge, maybe you can share if you have a reference. So I think we can work together.
Right. Okay, sir. Thank you. I understand.
Can I ask one question, Prabhuji? Hare Krishna.
May I know who is asking the question?
Sir, I'm Advocate Vivek Garg from Ujjain, and I'm also done the Masters in Asian History and Archaeology
Okay,
from the
excellent.
Vikram University, Ujjain.
Excellent.
So what I know that there is a last week I've attended one seminar by the D.N. Jha. Professor, his father has done the study in the excavation of the Dwarka.
Okay.
And his name was N. Jha.
All right.
Now he's no more, but he has documented some uh, archaeological evidences that there was a wall was going from Karachi to the Nala Sopara of Mumbai. So Dwarka was not a huge, a small city, but it's a huge state. And from the other side, the wall was coming up to this. There was a man-made island also in the form of the Kachap means tortoise in the roop of the Varaha. There was in the I can send that PPT to you, and you can join to Mr. B N Jha on the Facebook also.
Okay,
Secondly,
that will be excellent.
Secondly, Mahabharata with number of I'm not talking about the communist historians or the historians which are linked to the JNU or Congress. I'm not like the Ji, who was an ex principal secretary and is a very renowned Sanskrit and he lives in Ujjain, and there is a one more Vedvir Arya ji in Delhi, and many more Jijit ji and all.
Okay.
They have Neera Mishra is there. She also done a marvelous study on the Indraprasth last week. Last week only his book has been published.
All right.
And there is a one Meera Rai is there who revisiting Ayodhya. Her book is also released. So all due to that, we have came across that because a number of evidence is there that the Mahabharata was dated 5,000 years before, and this Ramayana was occurred nearly 7,000 years before, because we have got uh, some residues of rice and jaw from the Dankarai gufas, Dankarai caves. Even when the Sri Ramji has gone to the Talkavan, so is dating also coming around the 7,000 years. So a number of things which we have studied is the dating is coming about the 7,000 years. Secondly, Mahabharata dating is nearly at only one person is there, Mr. Nilesh Oak, who is dating the Mahabharata nearly about 5,000 years before. I mean, not the 5,000, 7,000 years before. And
Okay.
but his study is morely on the Arundhati, position of the Arundhati and Vasisht stars, because they are
Okay.
revolving around each other. And that was mentioned by the Bhishma Pitama during the Bhishma Parva, I think so. That's why. There's a one more link is there in the Jaipur dialogues. Mr. Ex-IPS, Mr. Sanjay Dixit has taken that interview nearly 3 days before of Mr. Nilesh Oak. I can send that link also. In that link also they are talking about that the Kali Yuga have started much after that, much after the death of the Lord Krishna. And it is nothing matching with that that after as the Lord Krishna gone to his dham, just after that Kali Yuga has been started. And according to them, Mr. Nilesh Hoke, who is residing in America and India also, according to him, and as he's putting his date on the consultation with the Madhavacharya Sampradaya, that the Sri Krishna years was not 125 years, but it was nearly about the 101 years. So this kind of if dilemma is there, then we want that ESKCON and all the other sampradayas there, like Gaudiya Sampradaya, Pushtimargi Sampradaya, should sit together and should confirm one date, because there are many historians are they should take some kind of the consultation with the sampradayas. On their own basis, they are doing the study. They are not consulting to anyone, not to the government also. So we don't want that the bhakt and devotees should get confused in that.
Yes, very good point. As far
Yeah.
as the ISKCON is concerned, or all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are concerned, we have full faith in the dates which are expressed in the these literature, Mahabharata itself. So, you know, my parents, if you ask your parents or maybe grandparents, I remember, see, when I was 3 years old, from that time, my parents were telling me that Mahabharata happened 5,000 years ago. And how they came to know? Their parents were telling them, and their parents. So it came right from generation to generation. You know, now 10 years ago, I talked with my father, and my father, he was he told something which we read in Srimad Bhagavatam now. You know, when I was studying Srimad Bhagavatam, and I discussed about him that Mesha, they are talking about some measure of weight, Mesha, and he said, yes, Mesha, we were also using. My grandfather was using Mesha. He is telling about 1920s, 1930s, 20s, these measurements they were used. And it's a fact, if we ask our grandfather, great grandfathers, they were knowing that Mahabharata happened 5,000 years ago, because the Kali Yuga it started in 3102 BC, and once Kali Yuga started 3102 BC, and the dateline, the new calendar started after that, and the Pandits they maintained each and every chronological record. So as far as the Vedic scholars are concerned, Vedic scholars are 100% sure that Mahabharata happened in 3102 BC. It's confirmed by Aryabhat. Aryabhat has said this, and it is also confirmed by Surya Siddhant. And if you hear the lecture of Prem Kishore Prabhuji, he has also given historical descriptions of 50 generations of so many kings. So as far as these sampradayas are concerned, so we are sure about the date of Mahabharata. And regarding Ramayana, we go as per the durations of the Yuga. So now 5,000 years of Kali Yuga have gone. So before this, 432,000 years of the Dwapar Yuga, and then double of this, that is the 8,64,000 years. So based on that, we could very easily see that 5,000 plus 8,64,000. So that means the Treta Yuga was at least 8,69,000 years. So that's how Ramayana. But then the Treta Yuga had end at that time. So beginning was like the age of the Treta Yuga was 12,96,000 years. So that way, that is the period between which Ramayana took place. So most of the Vedic scholars, they say that it was the early part of the Treta Yuga. So most likely much earlier, not just 8,69,000 years, so much earlier to that. So as far as the Vedic scholars are concerned, there is no discrepancy. But yes, as far as the modern scientific methods are concerned, now modern scientific methods, they may have, no method is foolproof. No method is foolproof, like in the case of the like I also presented. So the papers, they say that the Indus Valley dried between this to this year. So they are giving a very large spectrum based on the they have measured they have studied the mineralogy. From the study of the mineralogy, they have claimed that okay, at least these many years must have passed before the drying. So these have, therefore they have a broad range. So definitely the as the scientific measurements, they are also prone to error. So there would be, plus minus something. So scientific, more scientific measurements need to be done, especially here the clue lies with your Adams bridge. So if more studies are done, archaeological and anthropological studies, and if they are concentrating on the Adams bridge, something will definitely come out. So, and
Okay,
yes, you have shared a lot of very good information. So it will be good that if you could send some of the information to us, and then in the future, these projects, we can all collaborate together, because you are the right person, you have the right qualifications, you are historian. So I think that will be very good. So this is the email address, issdaily.info@gmail.com. If you have anything or any idea to share, please share this. So thank you very much. Your suggestions and your information is certainly very much useful to everyone.
Thank you very much, sir. I should congratulate and thank you our speaker, Professor Suresh Bhalla. So he so patiently answered. It's almost 1.5 hours. I mean, more than 45 minutes have gone in answering. So very nicely answered. Thank you so much, sir, for kindly taking out time for us.
Thank you.
So we're looking forward to more sessions by you. So, and I would also like to thank all the participants who so eagerly, still 23 I can see. So thank you so much. So I think